All right, since we're a minute past, let's go ahead and get started. This session is recorded today, so you'll have the opportunity to watch it later. My name is Gary Howarth, and I'll be introducing our challenge today and providing you some things to know. So we have some various options that you can use to connect your audio. If you have questions, you have a couple different options. You could raise your hand using the Go-To Webinar control panel. You can also type your question in. What we'll try to do is we'll try to keep this conversational. So we'll try to read the questions as we go along or answer hands as they get raised. So please feel free to interact and engage with us. In fact, we already have our first question, which is how is the phase 2 application going to be evaluated for effectiveness? And don't worry, that's going to be part of our agenda today. So in that spirit, please feel free to ask questions and let's continue. Let's start off with what we want to cover today in our agenda. I'll be pleased to give you an introduction to PSCR and to the mFIT challenge in general, and then we'll break down into the specific components of what you need to know for phase 2. So we'll include things like prizes and also the criteria that we'll be evaluating on, and also we'll be providing you some more details about how to be successful, how we'll be scoring the effectiveness. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. All right, let's proceed. PSCR is the primary federal laboratory that researches communications for public safety and for first responders in particular. PSCR is a division within the National Institute of Standards and Technology and is under the Department of Commerce. Let's introduce the presenters for today. I'm Gary Howarth, and I'm the Prize Challenge Manager for this project, and I'm also joined today by John Beltz, our IT Security Manager. So we've decided that we're going to suspend our webcams to improve the quality of the broadcast for the duration. But if someone asks a question and you want to share your webcam, you're welcome to. First, a disclaimer, though. We may mention commercial products or entities, and these aren't meant to be endorsements. And the information that we're sharing right now, unless it references a specific NIST publication, is preliminary. Let's move on. So the mFIT challenge is a multi-phase prize challenge run by PSCR. The first phase awarded $51,000 in prizes. Ooh, can we, oh, you already have, sorry, I think it's just a lag. And it also offers, in the second phase, up to $302,500 in cash prizes. And specifically, we are looking to accelerate technologies for the mobile acquisition of high quality fingerprints. So moving on, specifically, we know we have effective hardware to capture fingerprints in a variety of situations. However, we do not have technologies that are mobile and a convenient form factor to collect fingerprints in the field. And that's the major gap that we're trying to bridge. We've broken that down into several individual gaps. So I recommend that you take a look at the official rules, the mFIT challenge website, to look at those specific technology gaps that we've already identified. But the major piece that we're trying to overcome with this challenge is to allow officers and other first responders who need to capture fingerprints to be able to do that with existing devices or with only minimal additions. So moving on, in the first phase, we had solvers offer various solutions to these technology gaps in the form of a white paper. That first phase awarded $8,500 each to 6 teams that had various ideas that they wanted to try and implement, hopefully in phase 2. So phase one winners, in addition to winning a cash prize, are also invited to compete in phase two. I think on the next slide, we also have a walk-on option. So I'll point that out in just a moment. But during phase two, what we're asking for is for contestants to develop prototypes that they're going to be sending to PSCR that are going to capture fingerprints. Phase one winners are invited to participate. We're also offering the opportunity for walk-on contestants, individuals who didn't participate or didn't win in the first phase, to also try out their solution. Proceeding on, we have three major prizes for this contest: first, second, and third prizes, from $100 to $60 to $30,000 each. We're also going to have additional prizes that are being evaluated by our judges, such as the First Responder Choice Award, an Innovation Prize. We're also offering the opportunity for up to 10 teams to open source their solutions. If teams choose to open source their solutions, then they can win up to $88,000 each. We'll provide we'll provide further information about how to do this and the details and the logistics later on in the competition. But I just want to give you an overview right now of the sorts of things that you'll be competing for. All right, let's continue. For phase two, we have a variety of criteria that we're going to be evaluating the effectiveness of and the prototypes for. So there are more detailed rules or more detailed information in the official rules, so make sure to consult those. But these 4+1 are the major criteria. So I just want to point out some of the major things to make sure that you're successful if you're planning to submit for phase two. That criterion 0 is our compliance check before we do anything else. We're going to make sure that the prototypes that we receive and the various software that we are testing is going to be safe. We're going to verify that it's operational. What that means, we'll provide a little bit more information, don't worry. And we also have to verify that it's producing the images that are compatible with our scoring routines, and that they're packaged in a way that makes sense so that we can actually evaluate the solution. We'll be providing some detail about criterion 1. My colleague John Belts will have some more detailed instructions about that. We're also going to be evaluating for feasibility, user satisfaction, and overall innovation. We have a diverse panel of judges who are drawn from government, public safety, and technology. So they'll have a broad perspective on these various criteria. So moving on, I think now I'll turn this over to my colleague John Belts, and he'll try to walk us through the steps that PSCR is going to be taking to evaluate the solutions for the second phase.
Thanks, Gary. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending. I'm the technical lead for this prize challenge. My day job is I manage the PSCR security research portfolio, and I also manage the demonstration network that I'll be referring to in a few minutes here. So I'm going to be explaining the technical evaluation process, which makes up the majority of the evaluations procedures for criteria 1 that Gary just introduced. So our team of subject matter experts developed a robust plan for evaluating prototypes against certified devices. Now, comparing contact to contactless digital fingerprint images is not an exact science, but currently it's the best way to evaluate the quality of contactless devices. So I just mentioned the subject matter experts, and I'd like to highlight our highly diverse and skilled team that is assisting us with this challenge. We have experts represented from law enforcement, FBI CGIS, NIST biometrics, and mobile application development as well. So I will jump into the evaluation process. So on the week of evaluations, we're going to set up multiple stations to collect fingerprint images from different devices, including our own, our purchased Appendix F certified devices and each prototype received from contestants. So please note that from now on, I'm going to say certified. When I say certified devices, I mean EBTS Appendix F certified portable devices that collect contact images. We've purchased a few of these to support this evaluation. And I just said, want to note that because it gets very tedious saying those words over and over again. So certified devices means that long term that I just said. We're going to recruit approximately 50 to 100 volunteers at NIST to provide multiple sets of fingerprint images at each of those stations. We will anonymize the volunteers' fingerprints by giving them a number that's not associated with any other identity information. We have another SME on our team that has experience in fingerprint collection, and she's going to help us organize the details of that process as we get closer to April 2022. The fingerprint images collected on each device will be organized in folders and transferred to our primary server for further evaluation. Next slide, please. So the matching and analysis process gets a little bit more complicated. First, we do some control analysis, which basically means comparing each print to the same exact print and other sets of prints taken from the same device. This is to ensure that our process is working correctly and we're not seeing any abnormal results or errors from the images that we have captured. Then we will start comparing the sets of prints from each prototype to the sets of prints collected from each certified devices, all prints being from the same NIST volunteer. So we will take the matching score and some other important statistics and create a scoring matrix to compare the results of each prototype. Once again, I will mention that this evaluation process is not standardized. I mentioned that we're working with the NIST biometrics team, and they're spending years working with the FBI on standards and evaluation methods for contactless devices. So while our process is not standardized because there is no standard, we will produce accurate results through this process. Next slide, please. So these evaluations are going to take place in our lab here in Boulder, Colorado. I have configured our demonstration network to specifically support this challenge. So first, we have created an isolated and secured subnet with limited internet access. Limited meaning that we have web filtering enabled to block traffic to unauthorized destinations. We also don't allow any traffic to any of our other research networks or equipment. And we will have wireless access available to connect your prototypes to this network. Interesting to note there is you do not need to have an active SIM when you submit your device. We've also configured multiple virtual servers to support this challenge. The primary server will be where the fingerprint images are stored and where the evaluation software will be running. For the evaluation software, we're running two software applications. The first one is an open source software called Source APHIS. The second is a NIST published contactless evaluation software that will be published soon. It's currently in beta. We have an early copy, and I'll get to more of that in a second. This NIST software provides more detail than the Source APHIS software or some of the other matching tools that are currently available commercially. So we ultimately want to use this NIST software in our evaluations in April, but we also want to make sure that it's available in a time frame that allows our contestants to use it to test their own products during their development period. So as of now, we are recommending that our contestants use Source APHIS or another commercially available software matching tool to test their products. If the NIST tool is publicly available by February 15th, we will make an announcement that we are transitioning our evaluations to use that software exclusively. If the NIST tool is not available by that date, we will announce that we will be using Source APHIS. Next slide, please. So we also have multiple laptops configured to support each collection station, and we have the certified devices that I've been talking about. Lastly, we have a mobile phone hardware development kit we anticipated the possibility of our contestants using these devices for their prototypes, so we have one of our own to familiarize ourselves with that technology, that hardware. Next slide, please. So next, I wanted to talk about submission requirements. Consider these as supplemental requirements to the high-level requirements that were provided in the challenge rules document. Okay, so first of all, make sure we can easily access your device and application. We've received devices in previous prize challenges where lock screen pins or application passwords were not thoroughly explained, or application functionality was not explained in detail enough. So make sure we can easily log in and use your mobile app to its best functionality. One note on that is we'll be training some additional staff members to support our evaluation, since it's a lot of work basically. And we'll also be inviting external reviewers and judges. So the more explicit your instructions, the better the evaluation will go. It could perhaps improve your scores if that's going very smoothly. Second, make sure you've thoroughly explained the process to transfer your fingerprint images from your prototype to a laptop. Transferring files easily from your device to a laptop via a USB connection is the simplest and preferred method. And once again, be very precise in your instructions on fingerprint capture procedures. We recommend including this in your submission video as well to provide even more clarity. The last thing you want is to receive low scores because we are not using your device properly. Next slide, please. So fingerprint image file names will also be important. We will be collecting, organizing, and analyzing thousands of files, so consistent naming conventions will be very important for us. So we only have one mandatory requirement in this department, which is clearly identify the finger the image was captured from. If multiple finger images are captured at once, individual fingers need to be well labeled in separate files. For that, we prefer you use the standard numbering system provided in this graphic, but we do not require that. As long as each finger is clearly identified, we will accept your submission, but we prefer that you use this numbering scheme. Next slide, please. Some other preferences on file names. Include the name of the contestant, team, or product that you submitted. It would be fantastic if the mobile application has an option to enter the name or a unique identifier of the subject being fingerprinted, and that name or identifier is included in the file name for all images collected from that subject. We also prefer that the mobile application allows for multiple sets of fingerprint images for each subject to be collected and labels each set clearly in the file name. So to bring that all together, if you were using all of the preferred file naming conventions, your file might look like this. It has the contestant team name, here as Team Awesome, a subject identifier, here it's subject 241, identifies the set number, this is set 2, and the finger number, in this case it's finger 9. We anticipate that the metadata of the file will have the date and timestamp, so we don't feel that's a particular criteria that has to be specifically met, but just make sure it does. So I believe that concludes what I wanted to provide for the evaluation process. At this point, I'll hand things back over to Gary to provide some information on how to submit to phase 2. And Gary, I don't know if we want to take a break here and maybe answer some, I know that probably prompted some questions, and you let me know if we're seeing some questions and you want to answer them now, or if you want to finish up and then we'll come back to all the questions at the end.
I think that dealing with questions now makes sense. We had one question during it, but it might have been posed before you might have asked it, but the specific question was what matching algorithm or algorithms will be used, so maybe you want to talk a little bit more about the strategy you're going to use with source APHIS.
Sure. Okay, right now we have source APHIS in our lab, and we have the that NIST beta version tool that I described. So, like I said, if that NIST tool is available by February 15th, we'll make an official announcement on our on our website, via emails, any communication method that is possible for us to reach our contestants and let them know the NIST tool is available, and we are transitioning to use that in our evaluation process as our primary and probably only tool. Okay, now if by February 15th that tool hasn't been released to the public yet, like we wanted to make sure you had at least 45 days to test your prototypes and your products using the tool we're ultimately going to be using in the evaluations. That's only fair. So if it's not available by February 15th, we're going to say we are going to proceed with using the Source APHIS open source tool.
Great, thanks, John. All right, we're getting some additional questions. The first is, for the Source APHIS test, are the trials going to be one-to-one or one-to-many?
We are currently configured, and our process is set up to do basically one-to-one, and the one-to-one means your one image is from your device that you sent in, and the other image it's being compared to is the Appendix F image captured from the same volunteer on an Appendix F certified device.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks. So we have a question that asks a good question. Not that the others weren't, but a particularly good question, let me put it that way, which is, why not standardize the matcher now so we don't have to switch later on?
That's a great question. We feel fairly confident. We have about a 95% likelihood that we will be using the NIST tool, and I'm not even sure if I could say the name of it. John Liebert, if you're online and you can hit the chat or something, let us know if if I could say the name of this tool or anything. I don't want to step on your team's toes over there. We really want to use that. It incorporates, I think it incorporates the same technology and matching algorithms as Source APHIS, and it provides a ton more statistics. It'll really enhance our evaluation. So we really want to use that. We do feel, like I said, about 95% certain it will be available by February 15th, and we're going to be rolling with that tool. But it's not under my control, right? It's I would say it's not even under my friend John Liebert, who's on the call, and his team. There could be unforeseen circumstances or something like that. So we can't 100% commit. We can't give access to that tool right now. So yeah, I apologize for that. We are in a little bit of a limbo state on that, and can't name the tools and officially until February 15th when we make that final decision. We do have some leeway in the time frame of making that decision, which that could be a discussion with Gary and the rest of the SMEs. If we wanted to move that back, that's a concern for our contestants that they express. Like, guys, 45 days isn't enough. If we're developing 2 to 3 months using one evaluation software, and then you ask us to, we have to switch suddenly, that's problematic. We do have some leeway on that. We have used our best judgment and planned accordingly, but we have some leeway on that if, as a group, we feel that's the wrong way to go about this.
Yeah, John, I just wanted to underline something you said about how we do think that the tool will enhance this competition, but it's just a little delayed for publication. We have an interesting next question, which is the evaluation tool NFRACT? So
that's funny. If as you can tell, I think I've already answered that, so we'll leave it at that.
Okay, so are all the matching evaluations done one-to-one only, or is there going to be an attempt to do one-to-N based on a single dual or 10 print submission?
Right now, we are configured for we are planning for one-to-one. We're still ourselves, setting up the lab and getting our processes down, the planning phase. We're still in the fairly early stages. So, like I said, there is room for some changes here. If you feel it's very important that we do something in addition or other than one-to-one, we would like to hear questions. We can run that through our subject matter expert team. We can accommodate, possibly, if it makes sense. So I would say as part of these questions, like that's a good question that we're taking notes on all these questions we're receiving today, so we can take that back to our SME panel and take that under consideration.
Great. So there's a related question, or perhaps a comment, and which is that testing one-to-one is not as valuable for public safety applications. And so the suggestion is that it would be advantageous to test identification 1 to N instead.
So yeah. Again, early in the process, we wanted to talk to everybody to kind of get them started. Everything's not written in stone at this point. We do have our way our lab is set up. We have sample fingerprint image data sets that we've collected from various sources. We've gotten access to the NIST data sets. We've got access to a few, I guess, open source data sets that are available from different places on the internet. We have actually created that. It wouldn't be a huge stretch for us to do that one-to-many. It's just the fact that we're looking at the fact that we're going through, we're going to end up having, like I said, thousands of images that we're going to be processing. When you talk about multiple sets of images through all this, and this is not a year-long, standardized evaluation to provide the absolute standardized best 100% precise and accurate results. This is a week-long, very intense effort to get through this. So again, I take that as feedback from you that at least some of the contestants would like to see a one-to-many, and I'll review that with our subject matter expert panel, see what conclusion we can come to from that feedback.
Great, John. That I think that helps. All right, so we have a variety of other questions, so I think we can continue on. I think this is productive. Which version of source APHIS is going to be used for matching? Trying to look that up. Do you know?
Yeah, we've pulled down within the past month, and I don't believe there's been any updates. I do not know the version number offhand. That might be something that I understand the importance of that to our contestants. So maybe Gary and Census team, maybe that's something we want to really highlight as a note to our contestants, or I'll say this: we're going to be using. Sorry, got an Amber Alert on my phone here. We will be using the latest version that is available. So actually, sorry guys. I just thought I was going to say we're going to use the latest version, but it could be problematic if they release a new version like 2 weeks before our evaluation process, and all of our contestants have been using version 3.1 and version 3.2 comes out like right before that. That could kind of mess our contestants up. So I'm wondering, okay, take a note, Census team is taking notes, take a note, publish what version, or at least our plan for what version we're going to use during our evaluation of source APHIS. I'll tell everybody on the call right now, it's the latest version available on their website.
Great. Yeah, I think that we should probably provide a quick start guide for our participants that includes that sort of information.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that responds to that. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. How many prototype devices will NIST need from each contestant? We expect 1. I don't know if we can accept more than 1. I'd have to consult the rules, but that was the original expectation was 1 prototype device from each contestant. Isn't that right, John?
It is. I wonder if that person could clarify if they're sending multiple devices with the same exact functionality to help with the testing process, or would they submit 2 different, they have differences in their functionality or capabilities? I think the latter would probably not be allowed, and maybe split yourself into 2 teams or something for that. I don't know how you'd manage that. We'd have to check with our rules and with legal on that. I don't believe I've ever heard that question before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have several questions that are around the same thing as like, can we share the devices that we're going to be using to test against?
Share that.
So this is
I will. Yeah. So I believe the answer will be yes. Gary had an important note as we started this presentation about NIST not endorsing products. So I would need to work with Gary and he works for the open innovation team that manages all the legalities and that sort of thing. So we just have to double check and make sure that if we make that announcement, I imagine if we did that with the proper disclosure saying we don't endorse these particular products over any others, it's just what we have selected. But I'm pretty sure the answer will be yes, and we will announce that as soon as we can.
Great. And so thanks for that. But yes, that is a barrier to releasing those names now, but we hope to. So I have, there's another couple comments or questions. To better mimic a typical submission to the FBI, a 10 print submission on 1 to N is better. So a person pointing out how a more typical FBI process would work.
I'll say this overall because there's been I've heard a lot of questions on that, and we will work with our subject matter expert team, which included the true experts in this field, and we're going to have to balance our time frame available with the with the desire to produce the absolute best outcome and fairness for this evaluation. So like I said, we're going to take that under consideration, and we will provide a direct answer back to these questions as soon as we can.
Great. So the NIST, so I don't know if we'll be able to answer this, but I'll repeat the question. Is the NIST tool fully automated, or is it going to require manual selection of features between the contact and touchless images?
From what I know, so again, I'm kind of the programmatic technical lead, so I'll address this the best I can. That particular tool has manual alignment features where you can take known exact same spots within each fingerprint, and you can manually align them by basically connecting the dots and making those parts that we know should align, make them align with each other. There's an auto detect feature. We are in the process of trying to determine how well that auto detect feature works. As of now, we don't have an answer to that question, whether we will have to manually align each comparison or whether we will rely on auto detect and be able, if the auto detect works, that allows for some serious automation in our lab. So we're very interested in that, given, like I said, we're going to be rolling through thousands of comparisons. If we can really automate and script that out using that auto feature, we would love to use that. We want to make sure it's accurate enough and won't skew the results.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks for that. All right, we have a variety of other questions and comments that are around prototype devices. So I'm going to try and combine these. So essentially, people are, some of our participants are commenting that they would like to send multiple devices for to repeat functionality or to be duplicative. Because another person points out, what if a device breaks? So I think I think that the idea of sending multiple prototypes as a backup makes sense to us. But I think that the process that John has proposed doesn't require multiple devices, but having a backup device seems like it would be appropriate. So I'm just wondering if you have some thoughts on that, John.
And if they're duplicative, they have the exact same functionality and capability, and the only purpose is to help speed evaluations, and or if one of the devices breaks in some way, you have a backup. From an evaluation technical standpoint, I'd be all for that. And I don't believe, Gary, from a rules perspective or legal perspective, there'd be any problem with that, but I certainly don't want to speak for you or your team.
I don't envision a problem here, but we'll investigate to make sure. But I think that the rules seem to articulate receiving one prototype, but having a redundancy or a backup, something like that. I don't see how that is a problem. one question is how the judges would view that. Let's say if a device breaks, if it bursts into flames and then we have the backup, would that affect the score? I guess that would be up to the judges. Probably part of the ease of use. But that would be something that we hadn't thought about. So this is a great comment, and I think that we'll have to provide complete feedback. But right now, I'm inclined to think that that redundancy is good.
Agree.
And okay, so I think that responds to most. There's another question. Do you want it to be iOS or Android based? I'm pretty sure we're being platform agnostic here.
Correct.
So
that's correct. You can use Microsoft Mobile.
Send us a BlackBerry. But yeah, I mean, whatever you make work, then you can send to us. I know iOS is a little bit more locked down, but that is not necessarily prohibitive.
Generally, people have been in all of our prize challenges involving mobile devices. They've been Android devices just because it's easier to work with. But we certainly accept and even encourage an iOS device. No additional points for using iOS in general, but I'd just like to see them involved more. But I understand why they're not.
Great. Another comment on the prototypes is asking if the prototype can be on a particular popular phone loaded with the software, or should the prototype be, or should it be available to be loaded on the PSCR devices? And right now, we're anticipating you sending us phones with the charging cable and instructions to get into them. We are not providing hardware.
It's kind of both though, in a way, Gary, because yes, we do want a fully functional, complete, ready to use in the lab device without us having to do too much work to get it up and running. I'd say any work, but we'll see about that. But we also are requesting copies of. Did we take that out? Gary, help me. I'm sorry.
We did. We
in the
took
rules
that
document.
out.
We had originally asked for all the code, but I think we backed off of that for proprietary purposes.
We did decide to do that. So that's right. So we're not receiving any of your raw code. Don't send it. Put it on a device and send those devices to us.
Yeah.
And okay, so I think that I've dealt with all of the questions in the chat. If I haven't, if there is something I've missed, you can
Gary, I'm anticipating going by these questions and all this follow-up that I've been promising and all the info. I could see a need for a really easy way to put out continuous information and receive information. We have the Slack channel set up with Census, and I really think we need to make sure that everybody is on that channel and involved throughout this process. Sounds like there's going to be a lot of back and forth information here in the next several months.
Yeah, so I think the Slack is a valuable resource. We're going to provide that link in a moment. I think that the Slack is valuable for us to communicate informally. We'll also put complete information on the website, on the mFIT website. Also, Slack can be a great opportunity for teams if they want to interact to be able to. We often find that our solvers are most successful when they have complementary skills and solutions. So just a thought. Okay, so John Liebert is here. I'm sorry, I just realized that he is. I think he has a couple things to say.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is John Liebert. I've been running a contactless fingerprint acquisition program for about the past 10 years at NIST, involving with the very earliest of the devices that have been proposed, and some of which are actually on the market. I can answer a couple questions. First, NFRACT, the NIST fingerprint image comparison or registration and comparison tool, probably will be available by February sometime. I'm hoping it'll be available before that. Now, what it does is it actually uses the source APHIS It originally was designed to allow manual. You put a pair of images up and you visually identify minutia points. These are classic fingerprint minutia points. If you're not familiar with that, you can look that up. Sort of my dream was to come up with our own procedure that we use for evaluation at NIST. We actually had a sensory modified matcher that would spill out lists of corresponding minutia points for us, and we'd run other code to take those minutia points, combine them, do all the combinations, calculate for each registration transform, apply the transform, and then use a couple of metrics to decide on which set of points gave us the best solution. But of course, this involved a bunch of operations that weren't really convenient, very convenient to use. NFRAC now has a matcher built into it. In fact, it uses the source APHIS matcher to essentially identify lists of corresponding minutia. We only use 5 of those currently, and again, do 5 times 5 combinations and to determine the best transform. So source APHIS will do most of the work if it works, and it generally does work. It's amazing how well it works with contact image to a contactless fingerprint. It does not always work, however. It will always generate up to 5 sets of minutia points, but for some devices, some contactless devices I've messed with recently, I have had to go in and edit the points. Now, fortunately, it'll give you, 5 sets of candidates, or up to 5 sets of candidates. It's just basically a matter of looking at the images and where the points are being placed and decide whether they really are in the right spot. Or you can select new points or drag and drop the little pointers wherever you want. And so you can actually get a fairly good set of points out of that, even starting with the ones that Source APHIS provides initially. And the beauty of it is you can select the points, say register, and it'll produce some metrics that you can then look at and say, well, I don't like that. I'll see if I can improve on that. Go back, select, redo the point selection or modify your existing point selection, switch around a few points that you think might do a better job, and then run the registration and metrology again. And of course, obviously, you'll know whether you've improved it. I've been working on one set of images that I'm already up to the 4th trial and still not doing very well at match score. So, but it's an option for you. So it's really going to depend on how good your print representation is to begin with. Obviously, there are things that'll confuse a matcher, as particularly one that's basically a fairly that's a free matcher. Now, so that's the answer to NFRAC. Probably will be available, and we'll probably have refined it and actually have a manual by that time for its use. Now, 1-to-1 versus 1-to-N. For law enforcement, 1-to-N is really the way to go. Unfortunately, to do a good 1-to-N test, you need many more images in the background than are going to be available for this exercise. Unless, it is possible, we'll have to work out the procedure. If the images, we'll have to have, our human subjects people involved in this, but if the image data can be transmitted to NIST in Gaithersburg, I will run the FBI matcher on the data. Now, and generally what we do when we run that is we build a gallery consisting of the mate, the contact, or the Appendix F contact mates, in the gallery, along with about 3 to 3.5 million full 10-print fingerprint records. Now, the problem here is you've got very small sample size. If you're only doing 50 10-print samples, even though they're 10-print samples, there's not a lot you can say about that statistically from the point of view of false matches. You can, however, do some level of evaluation of true matches, and it does give you, with the background and getting a lot of alternatives for a poor image to match, it turns out to be fairly good. And if you read our NIST IRs 8307, 8315, you can kind of get the idea. We, of course, had approximately 200 subjects for those studies. But in this case, we don't really care. We're really only evaluating devices relative to each other. So we're really not necessarily looking for the be all and end all at this stage. But I would be willing to do that. We'll have to work out the details with PSCR to do that. The other thing we can do is we have other matchers. These would be more single print matchers, so we can fuse prints. Those are some that are used in our Minix program. So we have other matchers to use as well. But so I think that probably should answer most of the questions that came up.
Thank you very much, John. That was very helpful. And I do think it's important to recognize that, as John was saying, that we're trying to rank these technologies in the hopes of accelerating these prototypes, not have a true end-to-end solution with absolute measurements. So are there any other questions? If anyone has questions, please feel free to raise your hand, type something in the chat. Otherwise, we'll proceed with just a few other details that will help you to be successful. All right, well, I'm not seeing any additional questions, so it sounds like we've answered them. If you have additional questions, please feel free to ask them as we proceed. Okay, so let's, great, thanks for proceeding on. So for how to enter, please, if you have not already, if you are a walk-on contestant, you will need to register at mfitprize.com. We are expecting letters of intent from phase 1 winners if they plan to proceed on the phase 2, or any walk-on contestants by March 14th. That's what you must tell us, that you plan to participate. And we'll have a template that you could use for that available on the website ahead of that date. But this is critical for us to make sure that we can prepare adequately for the number of solutions that we're actually going to be, the number of prototypes we'll be receiving. April 4, that's a critical date. That's the day we receive prototypes. We're also going to be that's also the time we need to receive all the other submission materials as well. So things will, I'll go through the various things that you'll be submitting, but all of that is due on April 4. The prototypes are at the lab on April 4. That's critical, otherwise we won't have enough time to evaluate the solutions. All right, moving on. Oh yeah, and finally the solutions are, or then we're gonna be announcing our final winners on May 4th. Thanks, now we can proceed. Just a couple little notes. Please consult the official rules. Individuals or teams can enter. However, there are eligibility rules, so please consult the official rules to make sure that your team is eligible. There are specific restrictions around grantees, NIST grantees. You can't use your grant or cooperative agreement federal assistance to participate. You can be a current participant in other prize challenge programs. You can be a NIST CRADA collaborator as long as you're not getting an unfair advantage. If you have any questions about these, please email us at psprizes@nist.gov. Let's go on. These are the critical things that you'll need for, so this will be the website that you need. That's the email address for any sort of programmatic questions. And just reiterating, April 4, pretty important deadline. There's also some more information on the website in the official rules about the open source contest, which is optional. But we do invite you, if you want to make your solution open source, then we'll give you a cash prize for doing so. All right, and then proceeding on, I think that I just wanted to point out the things that you're actually going to send us. Essentially, there's 4 components, which is the application along with that prototype device shipped to us, and it arrives April 4. Important. You're going to have some documentation that complete information is in the official rules. You're also going to send us a little demonstration video. We plan on we'll be providing some more information on this as well on the website, but just for a note is that for your video demonstration, you may have a public part and a private part. So the private part would be for judges and SMEs only. If it had proprietary information, all of our SMEs and judges have signed NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that is. And but if there's a public portion that you want, then those public winner videos we like to feature on our website periodically. We'll provide some more information, but just to let you know. And then again, really important, you're shipping these prototypes to receive them. And we'll be, so by April 4, we'll be providing all that shipping information more than a month ahead of time, so you know exactly where to receive it, where to send it, all that good stuff. So, okay, if we can then proceed, then I think that we just have a few details on that timeline for your reference, and then any additional questions that we have. Let me see if any others have come through. All right, so we do have a couple other comments that came through. First is one of our participants says that they like John's idea about testing 1 to N with the FBI matcher to give a more meaningful measure of performance. So we seem to have an endorsement of that particular plan. And are these slides with instructions available? They will be available. Yes, so the recording and the slides will be available on I think that there will be an automated email that will go out to participants. We'll also put this on the website. We're also planning on putting a quick start guide on the website to provide this information to get you on the evaluation, get you started. All right, so any additional questions? We're coming up on the hour. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any other questions in the chat. So great. So I want to thank everyone for their participation today. Please register on the website and you'll be able to receive updates through there. We'll also make sure to send out an invitation to everyone that attended today to the Slack channel so that you can interact with us in a more informal fashion, maybe interact with your fellow teams, maybe find that special skill that your team needs. Maybe you could fill that gap. So with that, then I'll thank everybody, and I think I'll leave the last word to our technical lead, John Belts.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the thanks that Gary was providing. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for your feedback. We're really excited, and we look forward to seeing what you guys can do for phase 2. So thanks everyone for your participation. And I guess I'll close things out with the final goodbye, and we'll see you guys on Slack and on email and on our website, and we'll continue working with you guys. Thank you. Bye, everyone.